Welcome to the President's Desk, simulcast on 96.9 FM KGPC and Peralta Television, where Laney College President Dr. Rudy Besikoff speaks with community members, colleagues, and student leaders. This program is supported by Technical Director Felicia Bridges, who co-hosts along with Laney College journalism major Randy Cross and President Dr. Rudy Besikoff.
Pull up a chair and join me, Felicia, and Randy. Welcome back, Randy, to the President's Desk today. Sociology, leadership, and so much more are topics that are on the table today as we chat with Laney College Dean of Math and Sciences and Professor of Sociology, Dr. Inger Stark. In and around our conversation, we'll put the spotlight, as always, on our Partners of Laney feature and talk about scholarships for students. As always, the President's Desk airs at 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. on FM 96.9 KGPC right here in Oakland and can be viewed anytime online at kgpc969.org. If you've got cable, you can also see us Sundays from 1 to 2 p.m. on Peralta TV. Can't catch us on the radio or TV? No problem. All our episodes are available anytime on demand at kgpc969.org, along with a lot of other great Peralta programming. And as always, we can be heard on Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio. Randy, how can our listeners and viewers get in touch with the program?
You can email us at laneypodcast@peralta.edu, like us on Facebook at Laney College President's Desk Podcast, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Laney Podcast.
I'm Rudy Besikoff, president of Laney College, a pillar that has been serving our greater Oakland community since 1927 and has been known as Laney for more than 65 years, and where once again spring is free. On this show, great teams are what it's all about. In addition to my co-hosts, I want to recognize a big shout out to Whitney, who's at the controls today, as well as Elena Sanchez in the president's office, who books guests for us, and Raya Zion, our show contributor. But getting things kicked off today is my co-host, Felicia. How's it going?
Rudy, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing well. So if you say to yourself, college dean, if you say that with your eyes closed or hear it, what comes to mind?
College dean? Jeez. I don't know. There's so many college deans that I like. I don't want to.
Okay, the ones you like come to mind.
The single anyone out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, as a student, how about you? But if I say college dean to you, what comes to mind?
College dean, I'm like, oh boy, am I going to get in trouble for something?
All right. So perfect segue to welcome in, without getting Randy into trouble, Dr. Inger Stark, our Dean of Math and Sciences. Inger, as a faculty member, if someone said the word dean to you, what came to mind?
The decider on things like scheduling and classes, and kind of a support person, supervisor that tries to help make departments run well.
That's great. You do come to us as someone who's been with Laney for quite a while and played a number of roles in the district. In addition to being a dean right now, what are some of the other roles you played for Laney and Peralta?
So I arrived at Laney in 2004, which means that this spring I'm going to get my 20-year too, and I'm excited about that. And in that 20 years, I started out as a faculty member teaching sociology full-time, which I love. That's where my heart is. And over the years, I've moved through different roles. I've served as a department chair. I served as a dean temporarily in student services a number of years ago. Went back to the classroom, served as an instructional dean. Back to the classroom. I also served temporarily as vice president of instruction over at College of Alameda for a year. Went back to the classroom. And then I did two other primary roles before returning to be a dean at Laney. I worked as the distance ed coordinator for the district, and then I also worked as the professional development coordinator for the district.
We certainly appreciate all the roles you've played. And in my going on 6 years here now, there have been a number of times where just kind of understanding the lay of the land type questions, I've come to you and certainly appreciated it over the years. What is something that most people might not know about being a dean?
It's interesting because students often think discipline, which is actually a minuscule part of our job as administrators. What people don't often think of as a dean, or I think students don't often think, is that we're here to support students. We do a lot of administrative projects, support faculty in their classrooms and schedule building and things like that. But we do get a lot of students who come to our offices for other kinds of assistance. And I actually wish more students thought of deans that way.
I'd like to rewind a little bit to your time in the classroom. And just off the top, what's sociology?
Oh, Rudy, how much time do we have? Uh,
50 minutes for our TV viewing audience, an hour for our listeners.
Okay, I'm going to give a shameless pitch for sociology because I chose it because I think it is an absolutely fabulous field of study. It is essentially the study of human societies. So it's applying a systematic and, trying to be objective study of how human societies work and also how they don't work, the different components of them and how they change over time. It's, in my opinion, sociology. If a student takes sociology and it's not one of their favorite classes in college, something went wrong because it really applies to almost everything anybody does in the world.
So, community college campus, or a college campus for that matter, is kind of its own society. How do you find that you've taken what you teach in sociology and kind of seen it or applied it to college campus life?
Um, I feel like when students take an entry level sociology class, one of the things that they learn about is one of the central tenets of sociology, which is called the sociological imagination. And it was a concept, an idea that came up by C. Wright Mills. And it basically means learning to think about things within the context of the society, historical context, political context, social context. And once you sort of get that perspective of the world, it's very different. We as Americans think of things often at a very individual level. And sociology prompts you to think about everything within the context of the sort of social, political things around it. So the same is true at Laney, right? If you look at Laney, it matters what the history is of the community college and the community. It matters what is going on around the college politically, what kinds of things students experience when they leave the campus, and how society impacts those experiences. So I think once part of the reason a lot of people fall in love with sociology and why I did is that once you kind of learn to see the world that way, you can never go backwards. And it's a really valuable way to think about things.
So, if someone was interested in studying sociology, what would be like the very first class if they don't know anything about it?
Um, I think the best class to start with is the intro class. You don't have to. The other ones don't have the intro as a prerequisite. But as I said, if you go into the intro class, you kind of really understand how the discipline of sociology sort of teach people to look at things. So then if you were to go on and take a sociology class like social problems, you would already have that perspective. So I really encourage students to start there if they can. And I will tell you that Laney happens to have some of the most amazing sociology instructors. The other colleges in our district do too, but we have a few really fabulous instructors. So I would encourage almost every student who goes to school to take an intro to social class.
As they're looking at the schedule, who are those instructors?
Oh, okay. So there is an instructor currently at Laney, and her name is Charity DeMarto, and she's been there for a few years, and I just think she's a rock star of all things. We have another instructor named Marks, and I'm forgetting his last name at this moment, but he has been there not quite as long. He also is just unbelievably fabulous. And then, of course, there's Nat Pyle, who's a full-time instructor, and students really love his class and learn a lot in those too. So pretty much anybody who teaches, I think.
Excellent.
Uh, Dr. Stark, I'm going to ask for your forgiveness before I ask this question. But when students talk to me, I usually steer them away from sociology and any liberal arts majors. I tell them to go into math and science because AI is coming and the world is shifting. And I just see that's where the focus should be. But I know you have a great answer to tell me why perhaps I'm wrong in directing all the students to math and science.
Alicia, I hope we didn't lose any potential sponsors. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Amber.
So, first of all, I agree with you. I encourage all students to take classes in sociology, but as a transfer degree or a discipline of study to go on, it does not have an easy pathway into a career. If you go on LinkedIn or you go on those kinds of things, you're not going to see very many jobs called sociologists. There just aren't. It is, however, a really fabulous perspective for students who want to go into the sciences or the healthcare fields or go on to law school. Because once you have that view and you have that ability to see society in the big picture, it really does inform almost any career you go to. Now, I'm not saying don't study sociology. I think there are a lot of students who choose it because they fall in love with it, and for them, it is really fabulous. But it is true, if you get a local 2-year degree or even a 4-year degree in sociology, you don't get to walk right into a job the way you do if you graduate with a degree in math or science or engineering. That is very true. But everybody should still take a couple classes.
I would agree with that. I do agree.
In terms of things such as soft skills, global view, and careers, what other careers do sociologists or people who study sociology, 2 courses or more, end up going into? What are some?
So, for students who really fall in love with sociology and wanted to get a degree in it, that is a fabulous pathway into teaching and into academia and research on society. A lot of students who study sociology will look back later in whatever career they go into and find that it's been very useful. There's a lot of people who go into law school who complete a degree in sociology and then the prerequisites to go on to law school. There's a lot of students who complete a degree in sociology and then go to work in some sort of political or governmental entity, getting the prerequisites from that. And there are a lot of students who learn to do research on human society and then get a degree in sociology and sort of go into the research side of it, working for corporations or governments or those kinds of things. So, yeah.
So how would someone know that they want to be a sociologist? What would be a good indicator as they're moving along in their college career that, hey, this is where I want to be?
I think the best way would be obviously to enroll in a class or two, at least take a couple of different teachers and a couple classes and see if the discipline really speaks to you. That's how I fell in love with sociology. I took one class and I thought, wow, this is a completely different way to look at things in society. And then I took another and I'm like, I'm hooked. This is really important. So I think I really, if a student can't maybe get into a sociology class, they could go speak with one of the professors at Laney who are all make themselves available to students in person and online and learn a little about that from them. Yeah.
How'd you get into teaching?
Well, that's interesting, Rudy. I did not have a traditional kind of normal trajectory through academia. By the time I earned my bachelor's degree, I had 5 different transcripts. Now, I do not promote this. It took me about 12 years and 5 different transcripts. My older brother used to say that I was a calamity of good opportunities that kept pulling me out of school, things to do that I wanted to do. But I actually, in my undergraduate degree is in English literature. But when I was sitting in my senior year, I was sitting in a class in front of my favorite English teacher, David Robertson at UC Davis. And I just literally looked up at him one moment and thought, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to share information and engage with students. And in deciding about graduate school, I had to decide between English or sociology because I had fallen in love with it. And I decided that teaching sociology would give me an opportunity to talk more regularly about current events and politics and changes in society and inequality and things like that. So I made the switch from my graduate degree to sociology.
I'm like a big pop culture fan. So does sociology tie into pop culture?
Yes, it does. And actually, we used to have a long time ago a class in pop culture, and I believe NetPile's considering creating another one again. But yes, it does, because as you know, the discourses that circulate in pop culture are a strong reflection. They both reflect and then inform how people think about the world. So, yes.
Let's say you went to an education class, future colleagues to enter the classroom, and you spoke to them. What advice would you give to someone kind of getting started in teaching?
Oh, that's hard
Regardless of the discipline.
question. Well, I was going to say the first thing that came to mind is if you want to be a teacher, you better love what you're learning right now because you're going to be talking about it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? So
Say the same about getting a doctorate. Yeah.
right. Really want to kind of immerse yourself in different disciplines and content and say what really speaks to my heart. One of my best friends in undergraduate did become an English professor, and she thought I was nuts to switch because she loves to talk about books. And she says, hey, the conversations about books change all the time too, and are held in relationship to society and pop culture. So first, you really want to take the time to figure out what is it that really speaks to you, because that's something you're going to be talking about basically for your entire career. And then the second thing I would is to try to find some mentors, a couple of teachers that you really loved, and ask them for help and support.
Excellent. Great.
And don't forget, you're listening to the President's Desk, heard on 96.9 KGPC. Check us out at kgpc969.org and on Peralta TV.
Great to be talking with Dr. Inger Stark. Inger, before the station ID, you mentioned just basically advice you would give to someone about teaching. What's one of the best pieces of advice you received as kind of either coming up through the ranks as an instructor or even during graduate school?
I think one of the best pieces of advice is that teachers are never done learning themselves, that every semester, every year, you want feedback both from your students about how you can be a better teacher, and also from other colleagues by asking them to sit in your class informally and give you feedback, and reconsider the content that you teach every semester. That teachers must be learners, and students their entire career are going to become old and staid and no more relevant.
Dr. Stark, I know you and I kind of, when I got here in 2018, where I got to know you was the work on a committee that we both used to sit in fairly regularly, and a passion of yours, distance education, learning online, the Distance Education Committee. And certainly along the way, that was a time from 2018 to 20, pre-pandemic, where we kind of went times 2.5 in terms of our number of online classes at Laney College. And I know a lot of the professional development and the planning behind it, you were part of that. So what could you talk to us a little bit just about what you've seen, where we were kind of distance ed, online classes, it was kind of a budding plant. Then the pandemic came on, and of course it became something that mushroomed, and now we're kind of trying to find where we're at. But can you talk a little bit about online education and just the passion that you have for it?
So I really fell in love with online education because one of the things I love about teaching is pedagogy, which is the puzzle of helping students to learn information, right? How do you present and encourage students to engage content, topics, things like that? So I already love that. And then technology just started to roll into the classroom more. And I thought, how can you do that online? I mean, I have all these lessons about how to teach students to think about the sociological imagination, or how to understand the importance of the government in their every single day lives. And how I was like, how can I possibly take those lessons and make them meaningful in an online environment? So I started at Laney as the distance ed coordinator because I really liked trying to do that. And then I became the distance ed coordinator at the district during the time that we switched our learning management systems.
That's where you and I kind of start. We got to know each other at that point.
Yes. And that was a lot of technology, which was probably more technology for those couple of years I really loved. But then again, going back to really helping teachers think about how they can present dynamic and interesting material and lessons and engage with students in that online environment. It's not going away. Obviously, the pandemic threw us all into it in a crisis. But students learn really well in different ways. And there are students who really love to be in a classroom face to face with an instructor where they can raise their hand and ask questions and connect with their faculty member that way. And there are students who really prefer to kind of be a bit invisible in the online environment. Perhaps they might be more willing to say what they want in an online discussion instead of raising their hands in class or asking a question. So there's a lot of different ways that pedagogy can work in both.
I can't wait for the questions from my co-hosts, but I've got to ask you about something you said. If I heard you right, you basically said, I love distance education, but I like the technology. That was essentially that. I kind of heard.
Oh, yeah, no,
Can you talk about that?
So I love pedagogy, which is the puzzle of taking something that you would like students to learn and understand and engage with. How do you take that and share it with them? That's pedagogy, whether it's in the classroom or online. That's the piece I love. I don't love staring at a computer all the time. In fact, I really don't like staring at a computer all the time. I want to go out and walk around the lake or be in a classroom with students and But I think it's a necessary thing to learn how to use technology, both as students and faculty, and use it well.
I was going to say, I am one of those people that likes to be in the classroom because I feel like sometimes when I'm home online, I kind of drift off. So what would be a tip from you of like how to focus if you're doing a class online?
Um, I'm not sure. So this is the puzzle of teaching online, right? Is how you take that material and make it less likely that a student might not be able to focus. I mean, let's be real. A lot of our students have families, they have children, they share housing with other people. I mean, it can be really difficult to find your focus at home. Um, a lot of students also have a hard time in a classroom though, too. There are some students who are like, I couldn't really focus in the classroom, but when it's just me and my laptop, I can maybe focus. I think people just learn differently. For you, I would say, I don't know, maybe turn off the cell phone or
Yeah.
texting or Snapchat, turn off the TV, try to find a
Right.
quiet place. Focus is difficult, and being able to harness your focus and direct it at something it can be really hard.
Inger, I'm actually going to put Randy in the guest chair for just a
Okay,
minute. So
excellent.
Randy, what is it about learning online that you have found instructors do that make you feel more engaged?
I like when instructors say, cameras on. I feel like that's important because you can see other people. Because it's like when I'm in a class and say there's not nobody else has their camera on, well, I'm like, "Well, I don't wanna be the only one with my camera on," so I turn mine off too, and then I'm not looking at the screen or anything, and, I find that helpful when that there's that, and then I find that when the instructor kind of, like, will maybe ask questions to a specific person instead of just being like, "Hey, does anybody have any questions about this?" Maybe like, I mean, not saying like you're picking on someone, but just like say, "Oh, hey, such and such. What do you think of?"
So live sessions are important
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Live
Okay.
sessions for sure.
Now I'm going to flip the coin. Is there anything in an online class when you see an instructor roll it out that you automatically know you might be less engaged?
Probably I'm trying to think. Maybe like too much lecturing, maybe? I mean, I know that's the whole that's the whole point, but I mean, like, maybe something like, break it up a little bit.
That's great. Although hearing that, I don't know if you're going to be on a roster of any class I'll be teaching anytime soon.
Well, I have a question, and it's still along the lines of online learning. I'm curious to know the difference of developing curriculum for in class instruction as opposed to online instruction, because I know there is a difference. So, what things do you look for when you're developing an online class as opposed to in in class?
So courses that are taught face to face or online are required to teach the exact same content. So, a Social One class that you walk into on the Lady College campus with Nat Pyle, or you take his class online, the content should be the same. So every instructor then says, okay, here's how I would like to present it in the classroom. I might use group discussions, I might show some films, I might do a little lecture, I might do some group work. And then online, they do the same thing. Which of the online tools should I use for these students? Like maybe I'll do some breakout groups if I'm on Zoom, or maybe I'll use some short answer questions. And then, instructor response is a really important thing to keep students engaged online, right? So maybe as soon as students start writing in this discussion, I'll make comments or I'll ask them to comment to each other, or I'll try to make really short videos. There's a lot of research that says attention drops off after only like 4 to 5 minutes. So if you're sitting there watching a 90-minute lecture, so when a teacher takes their curriculum and says, I want to do it in the classroom or I want to do it online, there are different skills and tools they use for each. Hopefully they use multiple tools in either place, right? If a classroom is just all a professor standing up there talking, people are going to lose interest somewhere along the way, right? If it's all just, recorded videos online, same thing. So hopefully they'll do lots of different things to get the students engaged. Like even, hey, what do you think, Randy, about this idea of the sociological imagination? Or yeah, there's lots of different online tools that faculty can use. Lots.
Tell us about the Peralta Equity Rubric. I know that's something that you were involved with, and it gained some attention around the state, and even I remember it being presented nationally.
Yeah, yeah. So, the short version is, because it's kind of a long story, that I was granted a sabbatical at Laney College in order to do research because at the time teaching online, I realized that there were very significant equity gaps. So different student populations performed differently in the online environment. So during my sabbatical, I did research and asked the district to pull data and create data, which we now have on the regular, but at the time we didn't, that showed that disproportionately impacted student populations regularly did not stay in online classes as much as other students and did not succeed. And the grade distributions were inequitable. So I took that research and when I was the DE, came back and I was the DE coordinator and said, what could we create that would help faculty try to mitigate that equity gap? And we didn't want to just come up with our own great ideas. We actually hired a consultant to help us do research around the country on what kind of interventions actually make a difference in that. And a lot of people were talking at that time about equity in online environments or inequity, but it was talk, right? So we wanted to create something that a teacher could put up on their bulletin board and actually use as they're doing this thing, Felicia, that you were asking me about. How do you create your course curriculum? What could they do that would hopefully reduce those equity gaps? And that's how it came up with originally. And I think we rolled it out in the spring of 2018 at a conference in Southern California. And it really became a central piece, as you said, across the country of kind of a really central piece of institutions trying to reduce those equity gaps.
You mentioned an intervention, potentially something you would do to support a student, especially one maybe new to online learning. Can you give us an example of one of those equity full activities that would be such an intervention?
One is called is associated with the idea of belonging to a class, because one of the things we know is that when students don't feel like they belong in a discipline or they belong in a class, they're not going to perform as well. So how can you take your coursework and really create it in a way where students feel like they belong? So, if you're teaching a concept, you might not just say, here's the concept. Did you learn it? You might say, how is this concept relative to your family and your community? Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Is there some way this concept is particular to you and your life? So it's relevancy. And by creating that relevancy, you also help students feel like they actually belong in the content and the discipline and the classroom. It's blending a couple of things off the rubric, but that's a really important piece of online pedagogy.
How is it? I might be dialing it down to something a little bit more simple, but I think sometimes the equity gap could be affected about just the learning environment. For example, if you're at home, some people are actually taking classes on their phone. And I'm thinking that perhaps maybe if they created like a little desk, a little study environment at home, I don't know. Do you think that
Actually,
has something to do?
100% it does. One of the criteria on the
With
rubric has to do with technology and accessibility. Back in 2018, some students were using their phone. Now a lot of students are using their phone. So is the class set up so that a phone user can access everything that's there? The videos, the links, the images, the text size. Do people have access to the internet? Like, we kind of just think everybody does, but not everybody does have strong internet in their own home. They may have to leave their home to get it.
Shameless plug here. You did one earlier. Here's my turn. Just for our students, we have been a committed partner to the city of Oakland's Oakland Undivided project. And through that, students who need affordable broadband access, either at no or low cost, actually can contact us here at Laney, and we can provide the resources available through Oakland Undivided. And it's been a great partnership so far.
Excellent. Yep.
So
a lot of students come to campus to use the internet too,
that's true.
One option.
And I was going to, speaking on that, it's a lot of times sometimes I'll be in a online class and another student is like, oh, I'm driving. And I'm like, how are you focusing when you're driving? But you're in the Zoom, obviously they're on their phone, but it's like, I guess if you're transitioning between like home, work, that sort of thing. Or I know some people even they take a class on like their lunch break from work and they have to sit on their car in their car and take the class.
Having taught English as a second language and now English, and a lot of my focus being on composition, I'll tell you one thing that's happened over the years that I've noticed, and I started to notice it in like 2017. Prior to that, a lot of the time when I was grading essays for sentence level errors, I mean, there were things like conjugation of verbs or things like that. What I found more and more, though, were talk and text errors that were in students' compositions, lending itself to the very fact that a lot of our students accessed college through their phones when they probably should be taking advantage of the free laptops through the library, or our great computer labs that we have and things like that. So that's something I've found that's very interesting. But
What's a talk? What do you mean by talk and text error?
that they are writing their composition by speaking into their phone, and the phone is essentially taking dictation. And so what you'll see is some spoken conventions. Instead of want to, it'll say wanna or gonna or things like that you would not, in terms of academic written form, you wouldn't have that necessarily. So just some things that you're like, oh, okay, this person was talking to their phone. I get it.
Now, see, maybe you could create relevancy in your class by saying, I have learned that a number of my students are speaking into they're doing, voice to text. And you could create a little question board that says, why might a student do that? How could we support students for whom that is true? That's taking something that's actually a dynamic in the class and making it relevant. Obviously, you don't want to do it in a way ever that would shame a student, but you would say, this is something that's happening. Let's discuss this. Why might this happen? And how is it relevant to learning language?
Excellent.
And a reminder that you are listening to the President's Desk, heard on 96.9 KGPC. Check us out at kgpc969.org and also on Peralta TV.
Inger, I'm going to step away from our conversation for a minute and do a little business. Can you stick around?
I will.
Excellent. Yep. All right. Well, at this point in the show, I'm so pleased to welcome back Randy. Tell us about. Yeah, you were.
I wasn't.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
We haven't seen you in a minute.
You didn't get to hear me read Hamlet. So.
Oh no.
Maybe I'm.
Yeah, and,
That too.
yeah. And to our listeners, be sure to tune in if you haven't to the podcast where we welcome Michael Torres and some theater students. But could you tell us a little bit about just some student activities going on right now?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. We do have a couple of things going on and coming up.
Excellent. I understand there may be tacos served at one of them, which may be coming.
Yes, on starting on the 18th, we have the Laney Spirit Week. So on Monday, we'll be doing a pajama day. 19th will be Mexican food. That's when we're going to have some tacos. Wednesday,
President will be there.
Yes, Wednesday will be game day on the 20th, and the 21st on Thursday will be the Laney Green Community Day.
Wow.
And we also have coming up on March 21st is Laney's Women's Day recognition in the quad from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you, Randy. And for our partners of Laney Feature, where we put the spotlight on job-related things happening on campus, as well as some partners outside our campus community. On April 4th, we will be partnering with the Oakland Private Industry Council, as well as Alameda Social Services, to put on a job fair in the Laney College Quad over college hour, which is 12:30 to 1:30. Certainly want to invite the greater Oakland community to Laney College Saturday, April 27th from 10 to 2 for our Career and Technical Education Open House. It's a great event. And last year we actually had 500 members of the community show up and just check out our many disciplines and certificates and degrees in career education that have you in the classroom today and working or promoted tomorrow, which is great. And then finally, on April 30th, Laney College is joining hands with longtime partner, the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce, to put on a small business fair in Oakland Chinatown. So a lot of great things happening. And as always, as we get through the semester, Raya Zion and her team do a great job in the Employment Services Center. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out to her at rzion@peralta.edu. Also, as we transition at this point in the show, I will remind our listeners that Laney College provides one-time support scholarships for students who face unforeseen financial difficulties impacting their ability to attend school. If you are a student experiencing difficulty this semester, please contact my office at 510-464-3219 to learn about these one-time $500 scholarships, or you can email me at rbesikof@peralta.edu for more information. Also, to our employees and community members, there are a lot of activities going on and things that we do to actually try and raise funds. And Randy, I understand there is something coming up that the community can register for that's pretty fun.
Yes, there will be the Dr. William Riley Golf Tournament on May 20th. Please come out and support the Peralta Community Colleges Foundation. It'll be at the Sequoia Country Club in Oakland.
And I'd like to go ahead and assure our listeners that if you register for this, as I probably am going to try to play, you will not finish last. I think that you will see that I spend a lot of my time in my office working and very little on the golf course. So I think that might be a great event. But also to our employees and community members, this is just a reminder that all charitable gifts to Laney College are tax deductible and processed through the Peralta Colleges Foundation, which is a 501c3. If you'd like more information about that, please reach out to them at 510-587-7809 or email them at pfs@peralta.edu. Also, to our employees, it is possible to donate by, of course, with a one-time donation, but also by monthly payroll deduction. And that's something that's done pre-tax. And my office can certainly provide answers to any questions. Also, if you are considering a gift, often that's something that's very personal and you may have questions about it, or you may want to direct it to a specific area of Laney College. And if that's the case, please reach out to me with any questions you have. Give me a call at 510-464-3236 or email me at rbesikof@peralta.edu. All right. So Inger, we're halfway home on the radio podcast experience. How are you doing over there?
Fine.
Excellent. That's good. So now I'd like to go ahead and shift to your current responsibilities as the Dean of Math and Sciences. What does that encompass?
So you mean what does the division encompass?
Sure. What areas do you provide leadership
So
for?
the division is the dean is mathematics, sciences, and engineering. And in our division, obviously, is the Department of Mathematics, which serves most students at Laney College in some capacity. Biology and chemistry and physics. We also have anthropology, geography, and geology, and engineering. And beginning next year, we'll have a small little department added called artificial intelligence.
That's amazing. Of course, Felicia, that's one of her favorite topics. So what are those first steps in AI going to look like?
So one of our faculty members, Tuan Nguyen, is developing curriculum so that students can come to Laney and take a series of courses and go directly into the workforce with some very applicable training. They could go to work in the private sector. They could go to work in government. It may be that students who are already employed would come to us to take some of those classes to enhance their career development in the jobs that they already have. As you know, AI touches all of us every day. If you go onto Amazon, if you go onto Google, like AI is everywhere. And so the idea in developing this new program is giving students the opportunity to understand it from the technical side and apply that technical knowledge in their career.
You mentioned your love of pedagogy, and clearly seems like if there's a classroom, you have a passion for it. What made you decide you wanted to become an administrator?
So remember how I said a while ago that it took me 12 years and 5 transcripts to get my bachelor's degree? During that time, I worked for a women's center that provided services for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And I worked there for many years and worked my way up into being an administrator in the nonprofit world. And so I had put that down to go back to school. And when I came here to Laney, I found that some of those skills I had developed, understanding budgets and logistics and things like that, might work really well as an administrator in the community college setting. So I decided to do it simply kind of as a trial thing. There was an intern opening. And often, as you know, interim assignments get filled with people who already work for us. So I tried it and I really liked it. I felt like it's heartbreaking not to be in the classroom with students, but I feel like I can serve the college and students by supporting faculty in the work that they do by making dynamic classrooms. And so I just tried it and I kind of liked it.
Could you walk us through a typical day for you?
Oh, there's never a typical day as an administrator at Laney.
Loaded questions.
Sometimes your president will text you in the middle of the day and say, "Hey, Inger, can you?" And you say yes.
Me?
Yes.
I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
So I'll be honest, at the dean level as an administrator, and I believe this is similar to people often in roles as directors. Really, a lot of what we do is logistical, paperwork, budgets, organizing things. You have to have a 20,000-foot view of how things work. You have to understand policies and procedures, but really it's doing a lot of unpleasant little tasks so that faculty can do what they need to do and that they are supported in sort of following policies and procedures. And they have, I mean, some people say this is really corny. I really believe it. I really believe that, people often say administrators are above faculty and faculty are above students. I really think of it as the other way around. Students are at the top, right? Faculty are there to support them and teach and help them. And administrators are here to help faculty do what they do.
My job is supporting you as you do your
Yeah.
job.
So a typical, I don't really have a typical day. It's budgets, it's paperwork, it's forms. Sometimes it's things, just simple things like making sure a faculty member has a key to get into their classroom. Students always come first. So if I get email from students or if they come into the office, they're the priority. Right now we're working on schedule building for next year. So helping the departments set their schedules for next summer, fall, and spring.
Question: What type of questions do students have for you? I'm curious. Like, what would they come to you for?
Students will sometimes come if they're having issues with the class. They're either having issues with the content and they're not sure if they should stay in the class. They don't know what their options are. If they're dissatisfied with a faculty for some reason, they might come and talk to me about that. Sometimes students will come with questions about the trajectory, like what are the options for certificates and degrees and things like that. Usually in those cases, I would chat with them, but say you really need to speak with a counselor or something like that. Students come to deans with a lot of different things. They might come with outside issues that they have or saying, I just don't really know what resources exist, but I'm struggling because of this reason or that reason. A lot of different things. I wish more students would come actually, because that's my favorite part of my days.
That's right. I think back to my time as a dean, and often with that conversation, I would end up talking to the student about going back and talking to the instructor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever find yourself coaching up students to do that now, or find yourself doing it more? And what does that look like?
Very often. I think that many students, not all, but many students don't really feel entitled to question their instructor or ask more questions, or even perhaps just point out a challenge or something. And so a lot of time when students come to talk to me, if they're having a problem in a class or with an instructor, I will say, what might you be able to do for yourself? How might you be able to advocate for yourself? I always offer to intervene or try to mediate if they want me to, but I will often say first, you have every right to try this and to try this, to speak to your instructor, or simply even just to ask a question. Some students don't feel that they don't feel entitled maybe to be more connected to faculty. You're right, Rudy. It often is just trying to triage with the student and say, what can we come up with together where you can actually advocate for yourself?
So I'm not hearing like a magical strategy from you. What I hear is a little bit of triaging going on and building, as you said, kind of that strategy for students to talk to faculty a little bit. That's what I'm hearing.
It is. And, all students are different. All faculty are different. There's sometimes miscommunication, simple miscommunication things that can happen. I sometimes even will get students who just come in and say, I just want to tell you how fabulous this instructor was. Just recently, a student, was commenting about how absolutely fabulous Mallory Barkdale is in engineering, and that they fell in love with engineering. They didn't know what it was, and they fell in love with it because of the way she teaches the class. So sometimes they literally come up just to say, did you know
Randy, what have been some strategies that you've used, maybe in times when you were struggling in a class and needed to talk to an instructor?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of I've fortunately never had an issue with an instructor at all, so I've never had to go above that. But yeah, I just email the instructor, or if, if they have office hours, I'll join in on that because sometimes they'll be available via Zoom or in person. But yeah, I just reach out.
Well, if you've never had issues, I would actually like you to sign up for a class if I ever teach another one. And I promise you, it will not be a lot of lecturing. I'll do lots of group work and yeah. But anyway, professional development for yourself as an administrator. What's kind of your next frontier? What is something, if you could go to any conference anywhere and learn about anything, what would it be
For me personally,
as an educational leader?
pedagogy is always where my heart is, and because I think the world is increasingly online and is it would probably even more of that. But also even in the classroom, how can I connect better to students? How can I learn to present the information, Felicia, as you were saying, both in an in-person classroom versus an online classroom? I just really love trying to think from a student's perspective. How can this be meaningful? How can it be relevant? How might they enjoy learning it? Yeah. So for me personally, it's always going to be pedagogy.
Wow. No, it's very interesting because your answer to that question aligned with some things earlier about how for you things really start with the students. And even though I framed the question as a dean, you went to the classroom for your response. And I can see a lot of that. No, I can see a lot of that living in your leadership as an administrator, as a dean, and kind of transferring some of those lessons learned, not only to faculty, but also maybe as you plan your division and look kind of at the students of tomorrow. I think I don't know if that's what you said, but that's what I heard.
It's true. I will say that in my personal experience, in my youth, I was extremely alienated from education. I didn't enjoy going to school. I didn't enjoy high school. And I originally didn't enjoy my college experience. And it wasn't until I kind of stumbled into some classes and some instructors where I thought, oh my gosh, this like going to school and learning thing can be absolutely fabulous. And it's kind of from that experience of realizing education can be very oppressive and harmful, or it can be very engaging and supportive that I just want my career to be about that second.
And you are listening to the President's Desk, heard on 96.9 KGPC. Check us out at kgpc969.org and on Peralta TV.
Inger, another hat you've worn for the district, certainly one of leadership, has been professional development. Can you tell us a little bit about your efforts there over the past few years?
It was kind of funny because I had been the DE coordinator for many years and I decided I wanted to sort of shift gears and do something different. So I applied for and was given the district-wide position to help lead the professional development for faculty. And I was given that job in early March of 2020. And then, of course, pandemic hit. And within 2 weeks, they're like, well, this PD thing that you were hoping to do is really now all about helping the colleges shift to online learning. So, but once that settled down, I really have enjoyed basically learning from faculty what is it you would like in terms of professional development, and then trying to help coordinate and organize those kinds of events. As you know, Rudy, very well, the enterprise system that we use, which is called PeopleSoft, is really complicated for employees. And so I really enjoyed trying to help classified professionals as well as faculty learn how to use it more easily, more accessibly, learn how to try to reduce the amount of time they spend or waste trying to use the system. So I I've been accused of being pathologically helpful. And so yeah.
Excellent. What's ahead for Inger Stark? What are you looking to do just as you move forward in your journey?
Well, in April, I'm hoping to take a vacation if my administrators will approve it and go walk along the coast of Catalonia in Spain.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
But career-wise, I have signed a contract, so I will be here until June of 26. So I'm going to stay a while. I really think that the change in administration at the colleges can be really hard on faculty and classified professionals. So I'm going to stay put for a while, and I have no idea what's after that.
Excellent. Well, if students or staff want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
The best way, most people would use email, and at Peralta, it's always usually a first initial last name, and my first initial is I, and my last name is Stark. So iStark@peralta.edu.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure and covered a lot of topics. I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime.
I'd be happy to.
All right. Anybody listening today want to give a shout out to?
Let's see. Well, I know this sounds a little corny, but my mother is 89 and she's not all that well. And she's really proud of the job that I do in education. And so, Mom, when you circle around and listen to this, because I'm going to make her listen to this, I'm just going to give a shout out to you, Mom.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Well, my folks get a shout out when we close as well. So it's all right. And it's not corny. So anyway, just wrapping up today. Randy, your thoughts? Meeting a doctor of sociology and a dean.
Yes, I loved it. I loved hearing about sociology.
Excellent. And Felicia, just from your side, any reaction today?
I think we're on the same page, and I like what she's doing. So keep up the good work.
Excellent. As we wrap up another edition of the President's Desk, we want to thank our Peralta TV audience, as well as our listeners up and down the great state of California, from the far north in the 617 and the 530, or all the way down to SoCal in the 619. See, Inger? But special appreciation to our great Laney and Peralta listeners right here in the 510, tuning in today from Lake Merritt, Oakland Chinatown, downtown Oakland, West Oakland, East Lake, Fruitvale, Diamond, North Oakland, Adams Point, Central Oakland, East Oakland, the Oakland Hills, Montclair, Piedmont, and of course, those right here at the Laney campus listening to us in Oakland. As we close up shop at the President's Desk, straighten the chairs and turn the desk light off on today's program, Felicia, great job as always. Take us home.
Yes. Shout out to Laney College's Department of Math and Science. Thank you for tuning in to the President's Desk, hosted by Laney College President, Dr. Rudy Betzikoff. It airs Wednesday at 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. on 96.9 KGPC. And viewers can watch the show in its entirety on Peralta TV Sundays from 1 to 2 p.m. To listen anytime, find us on kgpc969.org/programming/current shows and click on the President's Desk. Or an easier route, find the show directly at www.kgpc969.org/the President's Desk. Also, to stream video of the show, go to YouTube and subscribe to Laney College President's Desk. If you have a suggestion for a future show, please email us at laneypodcast@peralta.edu.